everybody, and welcome back to Tattoo Homewreckers. This is a podcast where we talk about tattoos, life, and everything in between. My name is Callista. This is
Gaia.
And we have a special guest, Brandon Collins.
Hi.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course, absolutely. I wanted to start us off with kind of an intro episode of who you are, what you're about, and how you got in the tattoo industry and how long you've been here.
Okay. I still don't know who I am yet, so
that's okay.
that's a journey.
That's a good answer.
I've been tattooing for 16 years, I think.
16 years.
Yeah, it started a little bit late. I did my very first tattoo 2 days before my 30th birthday.
Wow.
So yeah, I got into the industry a little bit late.
What did you do before that?
Drank.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very genuinely
Drank
solid
and
answer.
did a lot of drugs. I was a bartender for many years. Yeah.
Okay.
It took me a while to get into the tattoo industry. It was a little bit different back then. You had to do the apprenticeship, and there wasn't internet and all. I mean, there was internet, but like not how it is now.
Mm-mm.
And so tattooers at that time, and I think still now, they've really kept their what is it called? I'm drawing a blank.
All good.
The industry, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
their profession, they kept it close to their vest.
Right.
So they weren't just like willy-dilly getting apprentices. So it took me forever to finally get an apprenticeship.
How did you get your apprenticeship?
Okay.
You hung out?
This is an interesting story, actually.
Okay,
So
great.
I had some friends, believe it or not, that lived in this area.
Mm-hmm.
And they were from New York. They were in a band called Grayscale. And they were from New York. They moved to Reno. I'm not quite sure why they would move to Reno, but they did. And I started to become friends with their friends in New York. So then I went to New York, and I met Mike Curatello in New York. We went to CBGB's. Like, this is before it closed. I don't remember what band we saw, but anyway, we got super drunk, and then we were just kind of walking down the street in New York, and he was saying how he wanted to move to Reno and open up a tattoo shop. And I was like, well, I know tons of people in Reno. I've lived there my whole life. I'll help you open up a tattoo shop if you teach me how to tattoo. And he was like, bet, done. And I was
Nice.
so then he moved here.
I'm dying over here.
He moved here. He got a job at Battleborn Tattoo.
Wow.
Like before, when they were on like Wells or something. No, yeah, they were on.
Yeah, so
they were on
OG
Wells like
Battleborn.
way back. Yeah. And so I apprenticed under him at Battleborn until we got the shop going. And then once the shop got going, I became a full-time tattooer, I guess, around that time. We were on California Street on the third level of, what's the name of that place? It's across from Blind Onion and the Loving Cup.
Oh.
That old, it's like a library now, or like a bookstore. It used to be a salon, and then we had a tattoo shop in the third, like up in the attic, and it was like haunted, and it was super cool.
That's dope.
And then we moved to the location now. That's how I got started.
That's how you got started.
Yeah.
Damn. And we were kind of talking about this before we were on air, but like the journey has definitely been different for you and Gaia too. I feel like because I'm a new age tattooer, I was already in the phase of like, this is becoming a fine art, people already respect it. But way back then it was like, obviously there was so much more stigma going around being a tattoo artist. And there still is now, but definitely not like how it was back then.
Yeah.
And I'm sure your apprenticeship was way different too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like I was saying before we started recording, I feel like I was part of like a transitional kind of generation of tattooers. You have the old school guys, and then like the newer generation. And like you said, the newer generation's they're really focused on art and like fine art, and they do oil paintings and all these different things, and they go to art shows and they have art like Lasting Dose has an art gallery connected right to it. Whereas back in the day, it was like old, dirty, dingy, behind, dark, and tattooers were just grumpy, old, biker types that and then I'm not saying that they weren't good at the art that they did, but it was definitely a different type, right? It was, you walk in and they had art on the walls and you just picked it. And then now it's like, I hardly ever see flash in any tattoo shop unless you go to like an older shop.
Oh yeah,
or
absolutely.
it's just used as decoration.
Yeah, that's how it is at our shop.
Wolf
Yeah.
City, it's just like it's up on the wall, but it's like all the way to the ceiling, and you can tell that it's just there as decoration, and it's not necessarily. I think because I've been tattooing for 13 years, but I apprenticed for 6.
You apprenticed for 6 years?
Yeah, I started apprenticing when I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
And I
But
started
she was in
tattooing.
South Carolina, right?
Yeah, and in South Carolina, you couldn't tattoo until you were 21.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Because like I started apprenticing even before it was legalized, and I learned how to tattoo from a old school tattoo artist
Dude in
who
the shed,
was
literally.
technically a scratcher. And he had one of those like sheds that you buy on the side of Lowe's in his backyard. And
What?
that's where I got my first tattoo. And it's also where I started apprenticing and like learning about tattooing. So I literally learned out of a shed, out of the back of someone's house that didn't even have a bathroom. You'd have to go into his house to use the restroom.
Yeah.
Which now makes me like look back and be like, wait, what happened with like hand washing?
Oh, yeah.
Bro, there wasn't like anything.
Did they even wear gloves?
Yeah, he wore gloves. But yeah.
I guess that was a lot longer ago, but still. Yeah,
it was still back in what, 2004?
Oh,
or
yeah,
so.
right.
To like give a little age there.
Yeah.
But I think that it's also partly a change because like, yeah, we were that generation that came in right at the beginning of this like revolution of art and tattooing, but also just because it's become more saturated, there's also just better tools.
Absolutely.
Because like I still made needles on a bar.
Yeah.
Like I was still like, I learned how to actually make needles. And then by the time I taught her, I was like, dude, I'm not buying all the shit it's going to take for you to make needles.
I'm so grateful
Right.
I never needed to touch an autoclave. Like,
Oh,
I did not
yeah.
have to, like,
What?
wash tubes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
serious.
washing tube was the worst.
Literally, yeah, I was a part of that. That's again the new gen tattooers.
Yeah.
They don't have to do that.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like I can only
Which is
imagine.
a little bit to me, fuck you.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Like
for
no
sure.
wonder you have time to do all this extra shit.
Oh,
Yeah,
1,000%
yeah.
to create content and
Yeah,
to
yeah.
like, draw more and like,
Right.
to paint more. I don't
Yeah.
actually paint. I'm trying. You know what? Eventually I'll get back to it. But yeah.
I like that I hate painting personally.
Really?
Yeah. I'm with Copic markers all the way.
Oh, well, I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like,
as long as you're doing
actual-
something outside of tattooing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But actual physical like paintbrushes, oh my god, it's the fucking worst. It makes me so mad because I can do so many more things with the tattoo machine than
for
I can
sure.
do with a paintbrush.
Yeah.
That I'm like, fuck off, paintbrush.
Yeah. It's totally different.
And I'm like, it's
Sort of.
well, yeah, it's that beautiful place of like having the precision of a pen, but the blending abilities of a paintbrush.
Right.
You have everything, all of my favorite like things
Mm-hmm.
in this most perfect tool.
Right.
Then I'm like, why would I settle on a stupid ass paintbrush? Like, I'd much rather be like, give me a tattoo machine. It
Yeah.
feels
Yeah.
better.
No, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're using a paintbrush or Copic markers or like back in the day, it was color pencils. That's
Yeah.
what I used.
That's what I
Prismacolor,
grew up with.
yeah.
Yeah,
Prismacolor
that was
the
my
best.
jam.
The
So
best.
to me, it was like it was a way of practicing your skills as a tattooer without actually having to tattoo somebody.
Mhm.
You could, and you do like color studies. I mean, with the iPad, like that's game changer right there. Like I will color an entire tattoo before I even tattoo it.
It's just hard because these new apprentices think that like it'll teach them how to pull a clean line, on an iPad or whatever, and it doesn't at all.
No.
You lose all of that action. That's why it's important, like you said, to actually create art outside of tattooing.
Yeah.
Especially if you're like really new in the industry, especially if you're an apprentice. If you're an apprentice, no one wants to see your digital artwork because
Totally.
like, anyone can pull a clean line on a fucking iPad. Or
Yeah,
on
there's a
Photoshop.
button that you push that
Literally.
streamlines it for you.
Completely
Yeah.
streamlines it for you. So
Yeah,
if you're not
yeah, yeah.
actually like painting or like, using markers or doing
Yeah.
colored pencils, like it doesn't
Yeah.
actually show and build that kind of skill.
Yeah.
Which is one downfall of being like new gen. But like if you're taught by like people who've been in the industry, they can bypass that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I know some tattooers that have apprentices, they don't allow them to use their iPads.
That's awesome.
Not at first, at least.
Yeah.
Like the iPad is supposed to be a tool, not a crutch. So it's supposed to make your art better, not give you something to rely on or to lean on. And it's not like, at least for me, and this is probably going to be controversial, especially for some of the older tattooers, that you have to draw on pen and paper and you have to do this and you have to make needles and you have to, and it's like, you don't have to because it's not necessary now. And I understand the tradition of it, but that part of tattooing is gone. At least as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
We have an autoclave. I don't even know the last time it was turned on, but you don't need it anymore, right? No. So why would you teach someone how to use a thing that's not used anymore?
Yeah.
And like you said something really, really cool just a second ago. You were like, well, that's why you have so much time to do like social media stuff. But you have to have that time to do social media stuff, because when I first started tattooing, there was MySpace and that was it. And then nobody cared really. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it wasn't necessary to promote yourself online. So it's funny how you had less time to do it, but it was less important. Now you have more time to do it, but it's more important.
Yeah.
So it's like they've flown kind of in concert with each other. So I try to give newer tattooers kind of a break, because I can't judge them on how I learned, because the tattoo industry now is really not very reminiscent of what it used to be. I mean, it's pretty close, but it's so different now.
And it's constantly changing.
Yeah, it's constantly evolving. And like when I first started tattooing, like there was the internet, obviously, because it was like 2006, 2005.
But there wasn't social media the way there is
Not
now.
really. There was, like I said, there was MySpace, but like you tried to get your pictures into magazines. That's how you got your stuff out, or you went to conventions, or you tried to enter your tattoos into contests, or things like that. So that's how you got your work out there. Or if you wanted, this is what I think is really cool that happened to the tattoo industry, but also kind of weird. Countries, or even like continents, or they had different styles of tattooing.
Yeah.
And so you would see a tattoo magazine from Hungary and be like, whoa, these tattoos are so different, because there wasn't the internet. Now it's like I can see and I can develop my style on anything I wanted to, because we have access to all the things. And I think that's so cool. But that's also why newer tattooers and today's tattooing is, the tattoos are so fucking good. Especially
so early.
So early. Yeah. I know tattooers have been tattooing a year, and I'm like, you're better than me after a year. Like, I hate you so much, but also that's cool. Cool. Good for you.
Because they have that access to knowledge.
Yep.
But I think that's another one of those things for me, is that as it develops and as you are getting this like need for social media, like we've been having this discussion at the studio a lot lately, is that it's like, hey, you have all this time to do this, because you're not doing all of these other menial tasks. But I still feel like there is a benefit for all those hours spent scrubbing tubes. That,
100%.
Because now, like, I don't know about you, when I was scrubbing tubes, and then when I opened up a shop when I was 19 and wasn't allowed to tattoo because you had to be 21. And so I was doing all the like stenciling, like running the actual studio, doing the like all the needles and tubes myself, because then I knew that it was getting done properly.
Right.
But it built this like appreciation. So like, yes, as much as I personally hate creating like reels and content, all of that, it's like each generation, as they do have that, like, yes, you need to be like advertising online, but it's like each generation, every menial task seems to become like more tedious for them, because so many things are automated. So it's that like...
Yes. They want that instant gratification, I think, is the problem with like a lot of, not to be like that person, a lot of people in my generation, but like, that's the problem, is like we were raised with the internet, and we were raised with that instant gratification and that instant like laugh, that instant like, everything, where the work is streamlined. All the work that we do is streamlined. You don't have to go into a library and figure out how to do A, B, and C anymore. You can literally just go on your phone and Google it. And still, people in my generation don't do that. They still don't do
Which
that.
is really weird to me.
It's weird, right?
But I think it's like what you're saying. Like, we had to seek out other styles. We had to seek out knowledge. And I think there is a certain amount of appreciation that happens when you have to seek out knowledge.
Yeah.
Because like, okay, not to pick on Callista for a second, how long did you spend trying to find your apprenticeship?
Not very long at all, actually.
Yeah.
It was It was like
Took me years.
And there's
Like literal years.
Yeah, it took me like a couple months, honestly.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was the thing for me, was that like 6 years sounds extremely long, but there wasn't a time when I was only able to tattoo up until, I knew going into it I had to wait 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I either need to, first off, I need to turn 18 before I can move anyway.
Mhm.
So I need to finish high school and all of that. But it just didn't seem like, for me, 6 years is like, it sounds like a long time, but it's just because I was biding my time and learning while I could.
Right.
Whereas like, her generation is like, if you don't get your apprenticeship like that, then
they
what
don't
the fuck
want
are you
it.
doing? Yeah,
Or,
they don't want
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Or they give up, or like, it is really a lost art to be able to see a problem and use the initiative to figure it out yourself. It is
Yeah.
a lost art. It's something that we've been struggling with I've just been seeing it a lot recently, where I'm like, dude, the internet is with you. You have like an entire like plethora of knowledge just
Yeah.
with you, attached to you at all times.
Yeah.
I should not have to walk you through how to hang up a shelf.
Right.
There are a million YouTube videos that
Yeah.
can teach you how to do that, or how to edit a reel. Really, I'm like, okay, I get it. It's like a pain in the ass, but like that knowledge is so much easier to access now. So
Yeah.
use it,
Yeah.
and that initiative is lost,
Yeah.
which is really hard. I don't know, finding like apprentices who like
Yeah.
want to,
And like as much as we want to like kind of bash on the younger generation for, being lazy or expecting things, it's our fault. Like it's my generation's fault, because we wanted to set our lives up easier, and then we raised our children in this life that is easier. It's not their fault.
Right.
I mean, obviously as they get older, they can make decisions for themselves, but like I feel bad kind of, but it's always, I've noticed this when I was a kid, my grandparents would complain about my parents being lazy
Yeah.
and like they don't appreciate
It's every
anything. And then my
generation,
parents
the whole
complain about
time.
my generation, and then now my generation's complaining about, and it's like we're doing it to them.
Yeah.
We're setting them up for failure,
Yeah.
or they're doing their thing and it's just different than ours.
it is, yeah.
And so that's why, like, I hear a lot of tattooers, and even myself sometimes, complaining about new tattooers, but it is what it is, right? It's that's the new way. And if we learn anything from Darwin, you evolve or you die.
Yeah.
So if the new way of tattooing is how people who are getting tattoos want to get tattooed, then evolve, right? So like we were talking earlier about tools, and like one of the things I really actually did enjoy about scrubbing tubes and adjusting your machines and everything is you got to not only appreciate your tools, but you also got to learn about them. You could check up on them. Like when I don't have a vehicle now, but when I had a vehicle, I enjoyed washing it because it was like giving it a checkup. You're washing it, you're looking at it, making sure the springs are good, moving things around, make sure everything's tight. Same thing with your tattoo machines and all your tools. When you're scrubbing your tubes, you're like, okay, is this tube still good? Because the older tubes, the needles would actually rub on the metal tube and it would shave it away. So you're literally injecting metal shavings into people's skin, and the tubes will get worn so bad that there would be grooves in them. So when you're scrubbing your tubes, you're like, oh, that's got grooves in it. So then you unscrew it, pull the thing out, toss it, put a new one in it. You keep the big, stupid, heavy grip.
Yeah, holy shit.
So like switching from coil machines over to rotary machines took me a really long time. I didn't want to do it, but who was it that? So I was at Hell City, and one of my friends was using a Bishop, and he had he was sponsored by Bishop, and he had a bunch of Bishops like laying out in his booth, and he was tattooing, and I was like, oh man, that's cool. Like, I don't want to switch. And he's like, why not? And I'm like, well, I don't know, because I'm just used to this. And he's like, but if this tool makes your tattooing better, makes it easier for you, why wouldn't you want to switch?
Yeah.
Why are you being stubborn? And I kind of thought about it for a minute. He goes, I'll tell you what, use this machine, do one tattoo, and then come back and tell me that you want to stay with coils. And I was like, all right, fine. So then I used it. And I went over and bought a machine, like literally right afterwards. And I was like,
That's
you
awesome.
motherfucker. You did that shit on purpose, didn't you?
Yeah.
He's a salesman.
That's awesome because it's like to have that like flexibility is hard to find. I feel like in this industry, especially because even though, yes, I'm part of New Age and I didn't get to touch, or I didn't have to touch an autoclave or scrub tubes, I still, encounter a lot of people who are like holding onto coils with a vice grip and they're like, no, fuck rotaries. And I'm like, okay, but I mean, the way she explained it to me in my apprenticeship is like, if there is an option of like basically using older equipment, so like we'll say, what did you say? Riding a horse versus going on a car.
It's a horse and carriage.
Horse and carriage versus like you could also just try out this car because this is how technology is developing.
Well,
this is how.
It's also the difference of like, okay, yeah, you might love your Honda Civic. But everyone else is driving a fucking Ferrari.
Yeah.
Right.
So like,
although I would argue if you have like let's use the example, my brother has a Mustang in his garage, like an older Mustang. Awful on gas mileage, right? It's not efficient at all. But there's a nostalgia to it.
Oh, yeah.
And
so if you want to drive an older car just because you like the feeling of it, and
More
that's
power
like
to you.
Totally. And I'm in the camp where like if you want to use coils, dope. If you want to use rotaries, cool. If you want to use the pin, cool. If you want to do tabori, it doesn't matter to me. If you're comfortable and you're doing the style of tattoos that you like, that's rad. The only thing that I have issue with is when you're like, fucking coils are stupid or rotors are dumb. It's like, we're on the same team, y'all. Like, we're all trying to do good tattoos. Like, it doesn't matter what your tool is. If you do a good tattoo and you're a good person, I don't care what you use.
I love that. I love that, like, the approach to it, because again, a lot of people are just white knuckling coils for no reason. Yeah. And I'm like, it's okay if you want to drive your Mustang, because I think that's awesome. It's you can appreciate the beauty of that. You can appreciate the history of it. You can appreciate A, B, C, and D, but don't like bash on other people for using a certain type of machine. It's really silly.
Totally.
It's very silly.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It's
Now, back to you.
Yeah.
You travel a lot.
Yes,
How'd
I
you
do.
go into that? How'd you make a transition? Because I think you said something about like getting rid of all of your stuff that was traveling. What triggered this?
Many things triggered it, but so I can't remember this guy's name, and I feel like such a prick, but he was like a traveling tattooer, and this was probably like 2009, like way back, and he did a guest spot at the shop, and I was like, wait, you can travel around and do tattoos? That's sick. And I got like really excited about it. So then I started doing conventions. And then when you go to conventions, you meet other tattooers, and then they invite you to come to their shop, and then you do guest spots. So I was doing guest spots all over the world. And then around 2015, I was part owner of the tattoo shop. I was putting on an international tattoo convention called Silver State here in town.
Oh, yeah.
It was invitation only. It was dope.
Holy shit.
And then I was also part owner of a tattoo aftercare, like skincare company. How, like, it was too much. I had too many like irons in the fire. I was sick all the time. I was like grumpy. My relationships with not only my friends, but my coworkers was shit. I was full on alcoholic mode. Like, it was just not good. And I didn't know what to do. So I thought, well, this isn't working. So what if I try something different? So I just freaked out. I sold my half of the shop to Mike. I stopped doing the tattoo convention. We folded the skincare company. I had an estate sale at my house. So like I literally hired a company to come into my house. I went backpacking for like a weekend, came back and my house was completely empty. Sold my car, like literally just filled my backpack up, and then off I went.
Shit.
Yeah, I've been to 56 countries.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
56. Holy shit.
Yeah. So the first trip I went, like, I just flew east until I got back to Reno.
You just kept going?
Yeah. So
you just made your own.
the earth is not flat.
Wait, what?
Either that or the pilot knew and was like, maybe we'll just turn around and go back to Reno after we get to New Zealand. That's probably what it was.
That's fucking amazing.
Yeah. So that was the first year. And then I came back to the shop or came back to Reno, tattooed for a little bit, and then flew to Mexico to Guadalajara and tattooed at a friend's shop. And then from there, I hitchhiked all the way down to the very bottom of Argentina.
Wow.
18 months. Yeah. And then I came back to Reno, and I've just been kind of traveling around ever since then. Yeah. So that's what I do. I'm a full-time traveling tattooer.
Full-time traveling tattooer.
Yep.
Crazy.
So Reno's a home base.
Sort of, yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, Reno's home base.
Yeah. What would be like, I guess your most frequently visited places? Do you have like certain...
Yeah, so I find myself going to England a lot. So I just got back. I spent 6 months in England.
What?
I just got back from England. Yeah.
Pretty great. Yeah, it's amazing.
And New Zealand is my other like second/third home.
That's where we're trying to move to.
Weird.
To New Zealand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's from England, and we're trying to move
Really?
to New Zealand. Yes.
I'm flying to New Zealand tomorrow.
That's fucking awesome. Yeah, that is fucking awesome.
I'm going. So there's a tattoo convention there. It's probably my favorite tattoo convention that I've ever been to.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to a bunch, and it's just like it's a small-ish. Well, no, it's not small anymore. It started off small. It's quite big now. But like the level of tattooers there is shocking. Like literally every single tattooer there is dope. I'm like, I don't even want a tattoo. Like you guys are so good. I'm awful compared to all of you. So like,
yeah,
I don't even want to.
I think most artists feel that way.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Like
But
I've
specifically
talked
this, and especially
Specifically.
this
Yeah.
tattoo convention is sick.
and I feel like if you're working it, you
Mhm.
still have the same caliber
Yeah.
of work.
Yeah, I know.
I think Derb, who does Hell City,
Uh-huh.
he was like one of the first artists that I ever met at a convention, and I just like sat down with him, and he was so amazingly humble.
Yeah.
And I had been tattooing for like 1 year, and I was like, this dude is amazing. I've seen your shit in magazines. Like I grew up loving this work. And he was just like, I mean, it's okay. He's like, but just wait. He went and looked through my portfolio. He's like, you'll be tattooing circles around me in like a year. And I was like, that's fucking nuts. Like, absolutely
Yeah,
not.
I love Derb.
And he's, oh my
Good
gosh, he's so sweet.
Yeah, hell yeah.
That's
So yeah, when you're in New Zealand, you should go to this convention. It's sick.
yeah.
It's in Taranaki, which is like, well, the area is called Taranaki, but it's in New Plymouth, and it's this town that has like, I don't know, 700 people, 1,000 people live there.
Wow.
So I feel like the population doubles just during this convention.
Yeah.
And like, it used to just be like a tattoo convention. Now there's like, they got bands playing, and they have like motorcycle, like flip trick things outside. It's like a full on,
Oh, shit.
it's like almost like ink and iron. Like it's a crazy, but on like a smaller scale. But
That's amazing.
what I really love about this convention is, so Friday is Artist Day, so there's no public allowed. So you walk around, you check out all the other booths, you like chat with all the tattooers. You can tattoo like other tattooers,
Yeah.
like you're allowed to do that. But then they do a pofuri, which is it's a Maori like welcoming kind of ceremony. And so all the tattooers, we all go outside and we all stand there, and then I'm getting goosebumps because it's so powerful. They come out and they do a haka, and they're all in the dress skirts and everything, and it's intense. There's little kids and women and like the guys, and they're all outside, and then they do a whole ceremony, and then Brent, the promoter of the show, comes out, and they give him I think it's a fern. They set it down, and it's like a whole ceremonial thing. And every tattooer is just like, no matter how many times you've seen it, you're just you're in such awe of the tradition and the power. And because tattooing in New Zealand isn't just, and this goes for a handful of cultures, it's not just I want something pretty on my body. Like those tattoos like legit mean something.
Yes.
I have moko on the back of my leg, and before it was done, the tattooer that was doing it explained to me what they all meant. Like, this is your tattooing life. This is your life. This is you being a traveler. And he explained the whole thing to me. Looking at it, it just looks like a really cool design.
Yeah.
But it has like real like meaning to it. And so to them, tattooing is not just a fashion. It's ingrained and it's sewn into their culture. And it's really cool to see them expressing their not only their tradition, but like their acceptance of us being on their land.
Yeah.
It's really powerful and moving.
What an honor to like see a haka, and like a haka dedicated to you guys too,
Yeah.
because I've seen videos of it, and like every single time I cry, I'm like, this is so powerful. It's so moving in different cultures. And you said something really cool too, how like in different cultures tattooing is like very sacred. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? They all
Yeah,
mean something,
yeah.
and it's such a sacred procedure. And like not to bag on like American culture, but it is more so of a fashion.
Yeah,
know?
Western culture, it's how it is.
It's a fashion
Right.
statement, absolutely,
Yeah.
which is cool too. That's
Yeah,
awesome. That's
absolutely.
great. And I'm not saying I'm a big fan of like not every tattoo has to be meaningful, but like it's so special to see that, and like I think tattooing is so special, and so it's incredibly validating when you see all these other cultures where like, no, it is, 1,000% is.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, I'm not going to say all tattooers need to do this, but I think that it's really cool, and I'm really, really grateful that I've been able to experience tattooing in different cultures, and even in different Western cultures. Because, like in England, they view tattoos a little bit different than we do in the States. Not a whole lot differently, but a little bit. Germany is a little bit different. Obviously, in New Zealand, it's quite different. And then, like when I was in Japan, oh my gosh, that's a whole nother like ball game of tattooing.
Yeah.
Tattooers are like fucking gods in Japan. It's wild.
Wow.
Because it's still underground. It's still taboo. Like it's not illegal, but it's very frowned upon. And I haven't been to Japan in it's been like a decade, so things may have changed. But like you don't walk down the street and just see tattoo shops. You have to like find them. And I was actually really, really, really lucky and fortunate to get tattooed by a master, Horikyo.
Wow. We talked about this on Veterans Day, and I was like, oh
R.I.P.
my God.
Yeah, he passed, unfortunately, not too long ago. I didn't even know about it, but how the whole thing, is it okay? Can I tell the story?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
okay, so
absolutely.
it's such a cool story. I'll backtrack a tiny bit because I need to give you some context.
Yes.
So my friend Shu, who I was tattooing with in Japan, I was at dinner with him, and I want to say it was Horihachi, which who apprenticed under Horikyo, and he did tabori. So he used the it's like a piece of bamboo, and then they like take a string and they put like a mag on the end of it, and they tie the mag on there.
Nuts.
And it's by hand.
Yeah.
He was telling me that that's how he did it, and I just mentioned, wow, that would be so cool to like get tattooed that way. And then we're just talking, and then Shu was like, chotomate, which means like 1 second. He didn't speak a whole lot of English, and I didn't speak a whole lot of Japanese, so we grunted at each other a lot. That's how we communicated.
Yep.
And then he just left, and then he as he was walking back, he's on the phone. He's got his old school flip phone, and he's like sweating. And he's like, hi, 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 hi. And he's like bowing on the phone. And I'm like, what the hell is going on?
It's a very serious conversation.
Yeah, very serious. And he comes and he sits back down, and between his broken English and his Japanese to English translator on his phone, he says, you have an appointment with Horikyo. And I was like,
oh my God.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
I didn't actually want to get tattooed. I just thought it would be cool to get tattooed.
Well, yeah.
So
he can't say no either.
No, he's a master.
You cannot say
so
no.
I was like, okay, this is happening.
Right.
So before he would agree to actually tattoo me, we had to go to his studio and meet him. And so we went to his studios in Nakano, which is just a little bit outside of Tokyo. And it's like in this weird, it was kind of an apartment, but it was kind of like, I don't know, it was in like a sketchy-ish neighborhood. And it was upstairs, and like we go up the thing and we knock on the steel door, and his apprentice opens the door, and then we like bow, and then we come in, and then Horikyo's tattooing at the time. And we walk in, and then we take our shoes off, and then we kneel down, and we just, in kneeling, watched him tattoo for like, it must have been 45 minutes before he even looked up.
Holy shit, that's
He
amazing.
didn't even acknowledge we were in the room.
That's also a beautiful power move right there.
Yeah. Oh, it's 100% what it was.
That's like a movie.
Yeah.
Shit like that exists, like actually happens to people.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
So like it was an apartment on the outside, but then when you walked in, it had the Shinto screens, and it had the bamboo floor,
So
and he was laying on the floor on a mat, and he was tattooing, the guy, and then it had just like the kanji script along the walls, and like the lanterns, and it just
literal movie.
I was like, did we just walk into a movie set?
Yeah.
And then he's tattooing, and then he looks up and he looks at Shu, and he gives Shu a nod. And then he looks at me and he gives me a nod. And then he looks back down, starts tattooing, and then he looks back up and he goes, Instagram. And I was like, What? So he started following me on Instagram.
Oh my God.
Because he wanted to find out what kind of a tattooer I was.
Yeah.
Before he, like, when I'm sure when he was talking to Shu, he was probably like, let me check this guy out. I didn't notice that he had started following me. I didn't know what it meant at the time, but that's what it meant. He started following me. And I was like, yes,
Yep.
I have an Instagram. Like, I didn't know what he meant, right?
Yes.
So then he finished tattooing, and then he's wiping the guy off, and the guy gets up, and so the guy's in just his underwear.
Yeah.
He was a full bodysuit with
Yeah.
the middle part, the samurai kind of, I forget what it's called. If you're Japanese, I'm so sorry for butchering this, but like, the guy stands up and he puts on the slickest suit I've ever seen in my whole life.
Oh my
I could see
God.
my reflection in this dude's suit.
Whoa.
And he put it on. It was just like,
Holy shit.
Yakuza, 100%.
I was about to say,
Yeah, 100%
like,
Yakuza.
definitely like, oh my
Yeah.
God.
And I looked at Horikyo, and he's like washing down, and he's missing his pinky. And so I'm like, oh God,
Dude.
what have I gotten myself into?
Like, he's seen me. A member of Yakuza's seen me, so like I need to make sure that I'm good.
Yeah. And so I was just like growing a little bit taller, you know?
Sweating a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
Okay. So
So then he cleans up or whatever, and then him and Shu are talking. I have no idea what he's saying. His English was actually better than Shu's. And he asked me if I wanted to go eat fish heads. And I was like,
yeah.
yes. And he's like, sake? And I was like, yeah, sure, we'll drink some sake. And then so he goes, he's like, okay. And then he goes into his little bag and he pulls out, he's diabetic. And so he knew he was about to go drinking. So he gives himself a shot of insulin so that we could go drinking.
That is amazing.
So then we like leave and we go into this like fish market. And we're walking around and it just smells like fish everywhere and there's people everywhere. And I'm the only white person for miles.
Oh, 1,000%.
And we go into this like little restaurant thing and there's a big table and there's a bunch of people already sitting at the table. And I was like, what is going on here? There's probably four people on either side already. And it was me, Shu, Horikyo, and his apprentice. And then everyone slides from the wall to the edge of the table, puts Horikyo at the very up against the wall at the end of the table.
Yeah.
I sit across from him because I'm the guest. His old apprentice is next to him. Everyone else, and then the new apprentice is on the very far end. So it's almost like rank and file.
Yeah.
Like you from wall to the edge of the table was like where you were. And Shu had been tattooing a really long time, so Shu was up on the top. And because I was the guest, I was sitting up against the wall. We're just chatting, drinking, eating fish heads. And then Horikyo stands up and the whole table stands up. And of course, I'm like, oh God, should I stand up? So I stand up. Horikyo leaves, goes to the bathroom. And when he comes back, his apprentice has a hot towel in his hand. And he like ceremoniously hands it out to him.
What the fuck? You never did that.
I know.
Never
What the hell?
I shouldn't have to ask.
Yeah.
Valid.
Dang. Sorry, did I just get you in trouble?
I know, right? I'm going to get my pinky bit off after this. Jesus Christ.
So then he wipes his face with it. And mind you, we all stood up the whole time he was gone. Nobody sat down. We stayed
so y'all
standing.
are just like literally like looking at each other like.
Well, they
know what's
they know
going
what's
on.
up. I didn't know. I'm just like looking at
so
Shu
you're
going.
looking at everyone going.
I learned really early to keep Shu in my periphery because
Yes.
whatever he did, I would do it.
Smart. So smart. So
Because like
smart.
if you go to, you weren't allowed to take your. We wore long sleeves everywhere we go, but every now and again we'd go into a Yakuza bar and Shu would do like this motion.
Oh, cool.
And then that's when I knew I could take my shirt off,
Yeah.
my long sleeve shirt off. Anyway, he sits back down, then we all sit down, and I'm just like, what is happening? Like, I didn't know who this Horikyo was. I knew he was a tattooer, an old school tattooer, but I didn't really know a whole lot about him. Apparently, he's like him and Horiyoshi were like bros, like growing up, like Yakuza
shit.
tattooers and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah, and so I really, really, really wanted to ask him about his pinky. It was like
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was rude or any of that. So I tried to steer the conversation like in a direction, and he ended up finally like telling me without me having to ask him.
Fuck
So I was
yeah.
like, oh yeah,
Yes.
because I didn't want to be rude. I don't really know the rules. Apparently, when he was in Yakuza, when he was in the Yakuza, he punched somebody that he wasn't supposed to punch. And so they made him cut off his own pinky.
His own?
Yeah, he had to do it himself.
Yeah. Oh my fucking God.
And it's like a ceremony. They have like a special blade and everyone's like standing around. He's like, thunk. I was just like, what? It was so insane.
That is so crazy.
Yeah.
Also, I'm so happy you told this story. You didn't just get tattooed by him, but you also had like dinner.
Oh
something
yeah,
that ate
yeah,
fish heads. Learned about his pinky.
I
That
think
is
that's
so cool.
I think
Most
Most importantly, the towel thing.
Yeah.
Like, that is so fucking cool.
Yeah. That was, I mean, yeah.
Nuts.
That was so incredible. That whole trip was incredible. So we finished and then we went out drinking and they were annihilated.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, he's late 60s, early 70s. He's blind in one eye, missing a pinky, has diabetes. Like, but this dude is just drinking.
Oh, yeah.
And they're all just falling on each other. Mm-hmm. But then as soon as they go outside, like into the streets, they're all upright, proper, not making any noise. Like they just turn a switch on.
Love that.
Wild.
Love
So
that.
then while we were eating, he's like, I will tattoo you. And I'm like, dope.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, Hanya mask. And okay. I didn't get a choice.
No, yeah,
he just
you're
told
like-
me what he was tattooing on me.
That is such a baller move.
I know.
It's like,
I
you
was
can't
like,
say no.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, dude, whatever you want. Whatever you want.
Because he was asking me about my life and all these other things, and he just decided that's what he thought would be appropriate on me.
Mm-hmm.
So then for the day of my appointment, I go in and I strip down into my underwear and like I got the mat on the floor and he's sitting there in his like gi. Like, I don't know what it is. It's like a tattooing kind of.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like scrubs, but they're white.
Nice.
He's sitting there cross-legged, and he like shaves me. Doesn't use like a stencil application. He puts the stencil on and then just takes a wet towel and puts and just wipes it, and then he takes a light and puts it like really close to my leg, so it's like burning it on or something.
Yeah, literally searing it on.
Yeah, and then.
The stencil's gonna hold no matter what.
He's like, this is actually how I tattoo it. I just iron this straight
Yeah.
up.
Oh my God. Yeah. And then his apprentice, he says something and his apprentice comes out and brings this just like stainless steel bowl that has a cloth towel in it. And that's what he used to like wipe me down. So like no paper towels, no like.
No, nothing. Just one towel.
One towel and a bucket or a bowl,
fuck.
like a bowl.
Yeah.
And he's full on, puts a stencil on, grabs a cigarette, lights a cigarette while he's waiting for my stencil to dry, smoking a cig. And he's like wrapping the I forget what they're called, but he's wrapping his tool, wrapping the needles around it. He does the outline with the machine.
Mm.
This machine sounded like it has never been tuned in like 100 years. When he fired that thing up, it was like, and I was like, oh my fuck, what is happening? And so he literally just does the actual outline. So like not the outline with the eyes, but literally the outline of the design. So just around the ears, the jaw, and around the horns. And that was it. Everything else he did with the Tabori needle.
Damn.
And when he started that first line, I was like, it was horrific. It hurt so bad.
Fucking amazing.
Because that thing,
hilarious.
it sounded like I don't know if you know anything about hot rods, but like they adjust the cams to where they're barely running.
Yeah.
And that's what it sounded. It was like, ta-da. I swear. I feel like
he's scatting at you.
Yeah,
yeah.
I feel like he didn't even have a power supply. I feel like he just plugged it directly into the wall and then just like clicked it.
Good, yeah.
Oh my God.
It was rough. And then when he started doing the Tabori, I was like, I had to look down to see he was actually doing it. It didn't hurt at all. Didn't hurt one.
Yeah, because he started you out with immense pain.
Mm-hmm.
So that way you would then be like, oh man, this is so much
also,
better.
he's been tattooing for like 40 years.
Yeah.
And the tempo at which he was putting the pigment in by hand, it was mesmerizing.
Yeah.
I was like, I would find myself kind of dozing off and like looking at it going, this is incredible because it didn't hurt at all. And it was just like, it made a noise. It made this like,
yeah.
And he was going really fast. It took like, I want to say an hour and a half to do a tattoo like this big.
Holy fuck.
So if you're not watching, what size would that be? Like a cantaloupe?
Yeah.
Something like that? Yeah.
Like a
and
small
also
watermelon.
what's super funny, the oh man, the ambivalence in Japan is unbelievable. So I'm in this traditional tattooing studio space. I'm on the floor. Everything's like straight out of like, hundreds of years ago. And then I look up and there's a flat screen TV and he's playing CSI Miami and he fucking loves it.
CSI Miami?
Loves it. Yeah. So he's tattooing me and he'd look up and he'd be like, ugh. And he's like, I'm like, what is happening?
You're in a dream.
I felt, literally felt like I was in a dream. And then Shu sat like on his knees and watched the whole time. Didn't say a word, didn't look at his phone, just like stood there and watched.
Like a good apprentice.
Yeah.
That's how we want him.
Yeah, it was wild. And then after he did the tattoo, I paid his apprentice, and then she came out with the tool that he used, and like they had me kneel, and so everyone was like on our knees, and she handed it to him, and then he looked over to me and bowed, and then handed it to me. So I have the tool. That's fucking how sick is that?
Awesome.
That is
he gave me the tool that he used to tattoo on me.
That's fucking dope.
So Horikyo's apprentice was, I might be getting this wrong, but I'm pretty sure Horikyo's apprentice was Shu's master. So there was a connection between the two. And because I was friends with Shu, I was automatically like part of the family.
That is so cool.
And like that, just my heart like exploded right out of my chest. He gave me a bunch of prints and like all these things, and I was just like, this is too much. It was so rad.
What
so
a legendary experience, though.
Was,
I can't. Yeah. The CSI Miami. I mean, like, obviously, like literally.
Well, and you can't see that when you first walk in and you're watching. You can't see the flat screen because it's above you.
Well, it's for him.
I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know it was there when we watched the first time. So I didn't even see it till like I was tattooing it or getting tattooed. I looked over and was like, watching CSI Miami.
That is so fucking cool.
So good.
Yeah.
Coolest tattoo story ever.
Yeah.
I've never ever heard anything like that before, ever. From the fish heads to the pinky.
Yep.
To the
Yeah. I've seen some shit.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Holy shit. Wow.
Yep.
Life as a traveling tattoo artist, you guys.
Moral of the story is get out and do stuff.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that on our podcast before because everyone gets always weird when I'm like, yeah, we're just going to move to New Zealand. Like, what's in New Zealand? I'm like, New Zealand. It's in New Zealand.
That's New Zealand.
Like,
yeah.
What do you mean?
It's a fucking different
Absolutely.
area of the world to be in, and I want to be there.
Yeah. And I mean, and I know that a lot of people can't travel because kids and, all these, and wives or husbands or partners or whatever. But if you really wanted to do it, it's really not as hard as it seems. I mean, it's getting harder now because when I first started traveling, it was almost like a free-for-all. That was the golden age. Now it's like everyone, you can't even travel with your machines and stuff. Like immigration places will, they'll check your Instagram. And like, Canada's real bad at it. They don't want you coming into the country and tattooing and making money. But then they also don't give you the opportunity or the option to do it the right way.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I didn't end up moving to England because there's no way for me, apart from finding someone to marry, there was no route for me to be to live there and be a full-time tattooer because there's no option for me to do that. So then I had to do it the bad way. But they're forcing my hand at this point.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
But I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I made that mistake. I was just going up to Canada literally just to visit Caboose for like a week when he was working up there. And I never say that I'm a tattoo artist. But I was just super tired and I had come straight from work, got on a plane, got up there, and they're like, oh, like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm just visiting my husband, touristy shit. He's working. And they're like, what do you do for a living? I'm like, oh, I'm a tattoo artist. And then they pulled me. And it like the moment it came out my mouth, I was like, fuck, you never say that. I always just say I'm an artist. And then they're like, whatever, I don't give a shit about an artist.
Yeah.
And then they pulled me and went through all of my shit. And I was like, fuck. And I had, I have like a hip impingement. So I had painkillers with me. That were just in an Altoid tin because I could never get a prescription for them. And I was like, no! Like the lady flipped it open. I was like, she's going to bust me for that. And I didn't realize. I'm like, oh no, you're looking for a tattoo machine.
Yeah.
I was like, you're looking for like, you're not looking for anything else except to be like, you can't illegally tattoo in our country.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Bro, what the fuck?
I went up to see Mitch Carrillo, who's a friend of mine up in Vancouver. I was in Seattle And I left all my tattooing stuff in Seattle on purpose because I did not want to deal with the Canadian border.
Yeah.
So I left all my tattoo stuff in Seattle. But I kept my massage bed because it's big and I didn't want it to take up space in my friend's shop in Seattle. I get to the border and the guy's like, so what are you doing in Canada? I'm like, oh, I'm just coming to see some friends. And he's like, what's that in the back? And I go, it's the massage table. And he goes, well, what's it for? And I go, for massaging. He's like, so you're not coming here to tattoo? I'm like, no. Well, why do you have a massage bed? And so I told him, I go, I kind of got shitty with him. I was like, I left my stuff in Seattle so that you people wouldn't fuck with me when I came to the border. And here we are. And he's like, can you pull over, please? And I'm like, fuck me.
Of course.
And I left my pistol in Seattle.
Yeah.
I didn't bring it with me. I did forget that I had a magazine with rounds in it in my thing, and I had a bottle of Advil.
Oh, and that was it.
And then they found the bottle of Advil, and they found the things, and I was sitting in the
She's taking care of the dog for those of you who are listening.
I was sitting in the waiting area, and they the cops come out and they're like, Mr. Collins, and they like grabbed they like reached for their sidearms, and I was like,
whoa, what the fuck?
Yeah, come with us, please. And like, what's this? And I'm like, that's a magazine. Yeah. Where's the rest of it? In the United States, because I'm not an idiot.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you sure? And I'm like, did you search my car? Because I'm pretty sure you did. It's not in there. Trust me. Yeah. And they, well, what about this? And I'm like, it's Advil. It says Advil on it. Well, why do you have it?
Advil.
Because I don't know, because I have pain sometimes.
Yeah, because I'm an adult human being.
Yeah.
And I have aches and pains that I need to take care of.
And the guy goes, do you mind if we test this? So they tested my Advil, even though it was in an Advil fucking bottle. And then
how the fuck do you test Advil?
I don't know. I don't even know if they did.
One of them takes it.
Yeah.
He's like, wait, no, I feel fine.
Yeah, this tastes like chalk. We're good. And then when everything went through, he begrudgingly was like, welcome to Canada.
Damn, Jesus.
I was like, what the hell? Yeah. So I avoid Canada like the plague.
But still go out there and do your damn thing. Still go out there, do the damn thing, because we get told a lot.
It's awful. It's happened to me almost every single time I go through the border. I could tell you stories about my interactions with Canadian border security. That's
a whole other episode.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
Episode.
It's the only border. I've been to 56 countries.
And it's the one.
And the Canadian border, the one that neighbors me is the worst one.
The one that's that's so
Australia's
funny.
pretty tough too, but I've been all through Africa and
that's
nobody
nuts.
cares.
Yeah.
Welcome.
I have like a different. They're usually terrible. The only time they've been good is that like the last time we went home was for my aunt's funeral. The time before that was for my grand's funeral. And that was it was the only time they were nice. Otherwise, they're typically super shitty.
Really?
Yeah, it's terrible. Because they'll look and be like, "So you were born here?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I have like both passports, and I just keep both. I don't ever give them my like British passport, but I'm like, whatever, I've got it. And they're just like, oh, and why are you back? And I'm like, oh, I'm visiting family. And they're always super shitty. And then I realized when I was there for my grand's funeral, they're like, oh, what brings you here? I was like, oh, my grand passed away. And the guy instantly flipped and was like, I'm so sorry. Right, love, you can go on through. And I'm like, why are you shitting on me?
Yeah.
Like, dude, I didn't decide to leave this country when I was 8.
Right.
It was taken. I was a child.
Well, now you know what to say every time you go through.
Oh my gosh, I know, right?
My grand passed.
I'm like, oh, grand passed.
You got to say grand, not grandma, because that's the English term.
They'll know.
Yeah. Or my mom.
Yeah.
Mom and gran.
Yeah. She still has a lot of English terminology that she's booked back.
Yeah, I've noticed.
Yeah, you've noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a whole thing.
Rubbish.
Do you say bin?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Chuck it in the bin?
Yeah, it's weird because it like goes in between. So then I'll say y'all, and then I'll also say rubbish. And then people look at me like, "What the fuck?" Yeah, because I spent a long time in the South, so like, yeah, y'all.
Right.
And like when I say why, if I'm just talking, I'm like, why? And her and Caboose make fun of it constantly. And then I'm over there being like, yeah, just my mom. And
yeah.
What the fuck? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. I've lived a lot of places.
yeah. I feel that.
Words are just very mingly.
That's so funny.
I'm sure it's the same with you, though. You've been to plenty of spaces.
Yeah.
Just pick up on all the terminology ever. So
yeah, I actually said the other day, I said crisps.
Yeah.
And I was like, Why?
Why do I do
Why did I do that?
this?
Yeah. I didn't even say crisps in when I was in England, but for some reason it just popped into my head. It came out of my mouth and I was like,
It happens.
nobody was around, so we're good.
Yeah, we'll forgive you for it.
Thanks.
It'll be okay.
Yeah.
I still, yeah.
Okay, so I think that is the end of this episode.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much. We hope you enjoyed the journey
Absolutely.
and
Thank
learning
you.
about Pinkies. And we will see you guys
Out of
next
context.
Out of context.
Learned about
Pinkies.
Pinkies.
Week. Yeah, we learned about Pinkies.
That's going to be the title of this episode.
Learning about
All right, bye.
Bye.
Bye.